Most people actually don't know what burnout is in the sense that most people think burnout is because you have too much on your plate. And
Right.
there's merit to that, of course. Like again, you're running a big team. Like of course there's no shortage of demands on you. But the root cause of burnout is disconnect.
Welcome to The Expansion Code. I'm Heather, and I could not be more excited to finally launch this podcast. This is the space where we dive into all things business, growth, leadership, and team expansion. I am really passionate about building something bigger than myself, sharing knowledge, and creating opportunities for others to thrive. I started solo, and now I lead a team of over 50. So trust me, I know the highs and the challenges and the incredible moments that come with scaling a business. Throughout this podcast, I'll be sharing insights, strategies, and conversations with some truly incredible guests. We are going to cover everything from marketing and leadership to mindset shifts and business expansion. So my goal is to give you real actionable takeaways that you can apply to your own journey. Let's dive in, learn together, and unlock what's next. Welcome to The Expansion Code. Welcome back to another episode of The Expansion Code with Heather Dick. That is me, your host today. I have a new friend, Minh-Thu, here. Thank you so much for being on the show.
Thank you for having me, Heather. I'm so excited for this conversation.
Me too. I'm grinning ear to ear. So Minh-Thu, we found each other on Instagram, and I relate a lot to her business and her coaching styles. So Minh-Thu is a recovering perfectionist, aren't we all? And control freak turned executive coach. So I'd love to hear a little bit back about your background in the retail world, how you got to be where you are, who you help. Hit it.
Okay, well, yeah, I'll try and keep it as short as possible because I could talk about it forever. But
It's
I
all
mean,
good.
yeah. So my background before getting into the coaching space was I spent 9 years in the luxury retail world. I always like debate whether I'm going to talk about where I worked, but I worked for Mercedes-Benz for nine
Okay.
years. So obviously, with that brand and that reputation, it's a certain level of performance that they require. And I worked in a male-dominant industry. Was one of I think I was one of two females, and we had a 12-person management team. So just all men, which is honestly, I think was great. It was a great learning experience. However, I had done all the things everyone told me to do to create what we would say a successful life, right? Like I had a great job. Was afforded a very great lifestyle from the work I did. Busted my ass, worked hard, great friends and family, which I still have. But I found myself waking up. I got to a point where I was waking up every day saying, like, is this it?
Mm,
Like, I had done all the things, I had accomplished all the things, I was moving at a great trajectory, but it's like, why would I wake up in the mornings and instantly feel dread and anxiety and, like, ask myself that question, you know? And
mm-hmm.
then I would start to guilt myself and judge myself for asking that question, "Is this it?" Because it's like, if people from the outside were looking in, it's like, well, she's got everything. You know what I mean? Like, she's got this great lifestyle that I would kill for, I'd bust my ass for, and then she's not happy. And so then it was like this vicious cycle of shame, that I
Mm,
was going through, which wasn't helping the burnout that I was dealing with. And so, like, aside from that, I had terrible sleeps. I would maybe get 3 to 4 nights of full sleep a week. I would be up all night worrying about, did I take care of this? Is this client got this? What's the bank? Like, just worrying about all the things. I had terrible digestion issues. I was at
mm.
one point throwing up about once a week from stress.
Oh
And
gosh.
I thought it was like food sensitivities because I wasn't bulimic, but I would just eat. And then out of nowhere, it's like my stomach would be on fire and I couldn't digest my food. So I tried cutting out meat. I tried cutting out pork. I tried all the things. And it didn't go away till I dealt with my burnout. So it was purely stress related. I was highly irritable. I wasn't making time for the people that I love because I was stuck on the couch as soon as I got home. I was like heavily guarded, heavily in my masculine, like super defensive all the time. Like I just, looking back on it now, like I was not a fun person to be around. But hey, I was hitting target. You
Yeah,
know what
and
I
you got
mean?
that fancy car.
Exactly. I had all the nice things. My nails were done. I had all the
Yep.
designer stuff, but like I'm miserable to be around, and then I was like, I think like a lot of people is like I was living for vacation. It's like
Mm,
I was like, when's the next vacation? When's the next vacation? And cool, I could take nice vacations, but I was like, this is not normal to like want to escape your life this badly. Especially
mhm.
when again, I did all the things that everyone told me to do. And so then it was years of this, and then finally I got to a point where I'm like, "Hey, I need to do something, otherwise I am going to, like," I was at a point where I'm like, "I'm gonna give it all up. Like, I don't care
Yeah.
anymore. I don't care about the title. I don't care about the money. I just wanna, like, feel like myself. I wanna feel peace again." Don't remember the last time I felt that. And so then once I kinda hit that breaking point, that's when I started to, like, really deep dive on, like, what I was experiencing, and I had studied everything from super woo-woo spiritual stuff all the way to super scientific, what's happening in my body. Like, I've tried everything and anything. And so going through that process, I really was able to nail down what worked for me to get me out of burnout. And it wasn't easy to do that. But essentially, what I do now with my company, Higher Alignment, is I took what took me years to figure out to get me out of burnout to teach executives and high performers and business owners within a matter of months. So it was really just taking from my own experience and now transferring it into this. And yeah, it's a lot more rewarding and balanced on this side of things. So
And it's funny because as a business owner, I don't know how many times I've told the story where I was waking up at 4:30 in the morning and I thought I had it together. I was like, I'm fine. And then, my mom, my partner was like, "Girl, you are not fine. You're not okay."
yeah.
And when you go through that, you're like, "I get why Britney Spears shaved her head. Like, I get it.
Yeah.
This makes sense."
Totally. Totally.
And
And I'm glad you brought that up because one of the main things that I don't think not I don't think, I know doesn't get talked about when it comes to the burnout content out there, and even just being in this position is most high performers and well, high performers, whatever your business owner, executive is, there's this connotation that burnout is a weakness.
Mhm.
And so then we go through this denial phase. We're like, I'm not burnt out. There's no way. Because burnout equates I can't handle it,
Yeah.
which I talk about all the time that that is not what it means. Burnout strictly is just a wake up call to say we have to be doing things different. It doesn't mean you can't handle it. It means the way your body's processing stress isn't working anymore and we need to fix our strategy.
Great segue. My first question for you, out of my list of multiple questions that I have, because I think that this is a topic that every single business owner, whether you're starting out or you've been in the industry for 20 years, whatever your industry is, it's so important. You talk a lot about stress optimization, and I want to know what you mean by that.
Great question. So stress optimization means this. The reality is we can't escape the stress. It's
Right.
not going anywhere, and it's not realistic to think that you're gonna cut it out. Like, that's just not the reality of being a human, period, whether you're running a business or not. It's not reality. So stress optimization means that you are learning how to process stress in the most effective way for you. So we're turning that stress into something that can be optimized and used to your advantage versus something that's holding you back. So there's like sometimes people talk about stress processing and stress optimization, and the difference is in the subtlety. It's like we all process stress, but whether your machine is processing it in a way that's efficient and supportive to your growth and what you're trying to do is two different things. I talk about the nervous system a lot, which for I always just try to I always try to talk to the audience like no one knows what it is, so we'll just go with that. But
Please do.
essentially, your nervous system, it's very complex in the body, but the specific sector that I talk about is the autonomic nervous system, which is essentially just your stress processing machine. What it does is all day long it's scanning for, is this something that's threatening to me or is this something that's safe for me? That's what it's doing in every millisecond. And so your nervous system, its only job is to keep you alive. It does not care if you're happy. It does not care if you're healthy. It doesn't even care if you're growing or successful. It gives, I don't know if I can swear, but it gives zero fucks about that.
Do you,
Okay.
girl? Yeah.
It doesn't care. It cares, is she alive? Is she still breathing? Is she still walking? Cool. That's all I care about. So when we think about growth and success, survival and growth are two opposite things, right? We
Mm,
all know your growth happens outside of your comfort zone.
right.
Well, then that doesn't mean it's based in survival. It means it wants you to do more. It wants you to expand your capacity. But all of our nervous systems are programmed for survival first. So that means if you don't know how to use your nervous system to your advantage, and I will scream this till the day I die, if you're a business owner, a leader, if you don't know how to use your nervous system to your advantage, mean getting it to optimize your stress, it is working against you. even if you are producing at a high level, even if you are, making things happen and being productive, it it's not even a fraction of what you're actually capable of if you haven't learned to use that tool to your advantage. So that's what I mean when optimizing. The stress that's coming in your body now, are we optimizing to get the most out of it, or is it actually putting us into survival mode?
So how do you do that? So how does someone optimize their stress?
Yeah, another good question. Well,
Thank you. That was off the cuff, that one.
yeah. I mean, the first thing is the first step I start with everyone is you have to start paying attention to you.
Mhm.
And this is where business owners run into problems, is because they're paying attention to everything else besides themselves. And so that's when I go back to what I said earlier about, like, when you hit burnout, it's not a sign that you're weak. It's a sign that your body is telling you, "Hey, we need to do things differently now."
Mhm.
And when you're too busy focusing on all the problems outside of you, honestly, most of my clients, when they come to me, they have no idea how to even collect data on themselves and how they're processing stress. So, the first thing we do is we have to look at symptoms. What are you dealing with that are indicators of burnout? What's your sleep like? What's your digestion like? How irritable are you? Do you get stuck doom scrolling? Do you have any addictions to alcohol, weed, screens, porn, gambling, any of those things? Do you constantly overthink? Are you constantly over preparing? That's a big thing too. Where's your
Mm.
self trust at? Like, you first got to really ask yourself some tough questions about where you stand with you. That's the first step. Once you can do that, then we start to ask some questions on, like, some basic things like, okay, so when you do get stressed out, what is your typical reaction? A common thing that people may have heard, or are you going into fight or flight? Are you going into freeze? And when you start to go down that path, then we can understand, because there's specific strategies based on which way you lean on how to change how your body's processing the stress. So it's a drawn out process, but to simplify it, the first step is you have to take the time to, like, start paying attention to yourself. If you're still avoiding yourself, thinking you don't need help, ignoring your basic needs, you're not going to get there.
Yeah, self-awareness is huge. And I talk about that a lot on this podcast. If you are not self-aware, even when you're leading a team or if you're just a solo entrepreneur and you don't have that alignment and you can't see that what you're continuing to do is putting you in a place that you're no longer really productive, you're not fun to be around, all of these things, it just adds up. And I think that playing on what you were talking about, it's not just one catalyst. It's not just one thing that triggers burnout, it's potentially 5 years of doing the same thing or whatever that looks like. So I love hearing you talk about that because we just don't look around, we don't think enough?
Hmm. Well, and I'm glad you brought that up too, because, like, most people actually don't know what burnout is, in the sense that most people think burnout is because you have too much on your plate. And
Right.
there's merit to that, of course. Like, again, you're running a big team. Like, of course, there's no shortage of demands on you. But the root cause of burnout is disconnect. So I always use the example as, there's the version of you that you're showing up as right now that thinks, I need to do this, I need to get this done, I have to look a certain way, be a certain way, talk a certain way. And then there's a true version of you who's still capable of all those things, but does it from a more aligned place. And that gap in between is the disconnect. And in that gap is where the anxiety shows up, the control shows up, the perfectionism pops up. And that's actually what's draining you. It's not the fact that you have 5 meetings on your schedule today that are back to back. It's the fact that in those 5 meetings, you have 10 other tabs open in the background that are draining your energy, that you're honestly usually not even conscious of. That's what's burning you out, right? But again, we all, me included, have these preconceived notions on how things have to be in order to show up a certain way. Again, perfectionism's the biggest example of that. And then when we think it always has to be a certain way for us to get a certain result, I'm not saying that you don't need to still do things a certain way to get a result, but there's usually so much more, like, bullshit in the background
Mhm.
that we're moving with, and that's dragging us down, and that's actually what's burning you out. It's not the meetings, it's all the tabs in the background. And so my process with people when we get to that point is like, so now we need to look at these tabs and what's actually supporting your growth, what's actually allowing you to expand and grow, and what's actually holding you back.
Okay, so then how do you close those tabs? How do you get rid of them?
Well,
You can't just
well,
exit.
no, you're right, you're right. Well, and here so, okay, so, and for the sake of time and what we have today is it's a process, but okay, so let me backtrack. So when I'll just talk about it from the perspective of how I usually take clients through it. So when someone
Perfect.
comes to me and they're burnt out, that usually means, not usually, it does mean that they're in a deficit energetically, right? So if we all have a certain baseline of where we are, what I call in balance, and all imbalance means, because there's a lot of talk about like work-life balance and all that stuff. Balance from a nervous system perspective just means I can be present in the moment and I can
Mm,
feel at peace with that, right? Where most of us, when we're burnt out, you're at work and you're thinking about the kids, and you're at home and you're thinking about work. You're never actually present. Your mind's always somewhere else, right? So if you don't find that you can be consistently present, and I don't think you can do that 100% of the time as a human, but if you're doing that, if you can be present in peaceful in the moment 70, 80% of the time, you're in a good place. But if the majority of the time you're scattered energetically, then you're out of whack. So when people come to me, their baseline, they're in a deficit. So they're so energetically drained, exhausted, lethargic, all these things, overthinking, that my first step to them is, before we even deal with the tabs that are open, we need to just get you back to ground zero. Because if you're not at ground zero, you're seeing with blinders on, you're seeing from survival mode, you're seeing from scarcity. And we've all been there, right?
of
When
course.
you're super stressed out and there's so much on your plate, your ability to see big picture, your ability to problem solve is like shut down, and not even
Mhm.
just from a like talking about it in theory, like literally from a physiological place. When you're dysregulated from a nervous system perspective, again, just meaning you're out of balance, there's a part of your brain that's necessary for creative thinking and problem solving and critical thinking. It literally shuts down because your body goes, I don't need that right now to survive. So I'm actually just going to shut it down. So again, when we go back to, you think you're performing at a high level, you're actually not, because there's a part of your brain you don't have access to right now. So when someone comes to me, the first goal is, we just got to get you back to baseline. So that's understanding how you're processing stress right now, looking at your symptoms, and gradually getting you back to ground zero. Once we have you at ground zero, and I say essentially you can feel like you again, you don't feel like a monster anymore. You don't feel like you're broken. You feel like, I can let my shoulders down and I can actually exhale. Once we get you to that, now we're starting to look at those tabs. So now we're looking at what systems are working for me and I want to keep, what systems are draining me and need to get shut down, and what systems simply need an upgrade. Just like any business, systems determine whether you can scale or not, right? But
Mhm.
you also have your own system of how you're operating and producing and getting things done. But we can't close those tabs out till I get you back to ground zero, purely for the fact that you're going to be seeing from a very skewed lens still, and you're going to think you still need those tabs. Right. Like I can't start with someone there because I'm like, I can't get rid of that. I still need
Right.
that. Like you're grasping onto all your old strategies, understandably so. That's how we're wired. I need to get you back to a point of like, okay, I'm okay. And now we can more objectively look at like, oh yeah, that is like what normally takes me, a task that should only take me 10% of my energy is actually taking 60%. Yeah, this needs
Mm.
to go, because that's way too much energy being wasted on something that doesn't require that much time. Does that answer your question? Kind of.
Yeah, that was great. I'm just sitting here like, "Mhm, mhm."
Yeah.
It's so true though. I also think that we have such high expectations for ourselves nowadays, especially with kids and sports and work and extracurricular things. We have spread ourselves just too thin, whether you own a business or not.
Mhm.
And I think that, I don't have children, so I don't have that extra time sink, I guess you would call it. Like, they take a lot of time. But when I look at my friends that are business owners, the ones especially that are struggling, they've promised so much of themselves to the world. And I think that they can't see what they need to do in order to
Mhm.
get to that place of freedom. And, they're always just on guard. And it's kind of painful to watch a little bit.
Yeah, it's hard.
Yeah.
Like you're exactly right. We've spread ourselves so thin in the fact that, like, I mean, obviously I've never lived, well, I mean, I don't know if you believe in incarnation, but I only know this life and this time, right? But like
Yes.
it's the most stressful and we've been inundated with the most amount of stress we ever have been, right? And like going back to the nervous system, so again, this system in your body that processes stress, it hasn't evolved much since the times when we were still living like in nature and in caves, okay? So like so from a very practical standpoint, what you're talking about is mindset is important, but everyone talks about how like I just need to be stronger, I can do it, and you got to kind of talk yourself to push through all these things you've committed to, right? Like you mentioned, and you think like, okay, if I'm not making it happen, then my mindset's weak. I just got to work on my mindset. But there's a system in your body that will overrun that mindset if it thinks that it can't handle it, right?
Right.
So going back to what I was saying, when we used to live in nature and all we had to do was like hunt and sleep and survive, right? At that time, the only stresses we ever really had were physical stresses, meaning like a bear's chasing me, right? So
Mm,
I'm out in nature, I live in nature with my tribe, and a bear chases me. But when the bear's done, I don't really have any more stressors. I just go back to living in nature and eating berries and staying in the sun. And that was life, right?
right.
Our nervous systems haven't progressed, honestly, much from that point. Now, what that means is today's day and age, we don't deal with necessarily a lot of physical stressors. Obviously, there are some out there in the world, but most of our
Sure.
stressors are emotional and psychological, meaning the bear that once was then is now the news, being canceled
Mm.
online, having a difference of opinion, feeling like you need to make a certain amount of target, feeling like you need to be a mom of 5 kids and a CEO, feeling feeling like you have to have a six pack, feeling like you have to have perfect skin. Like those are stressors on us, and we're getting inundated with it all day long, and our nervous system is going, what is this? What happened to the bear? I'd rather go back to that life,
Yeah.
right? But now you're getting hit at pretty much every time you open your phone, you're getting a stressor, right? So going back to my point earlier when I said like we have to learn how to use our nervous system to our advantage, because it's never had to deal with this before. It's still
Hmm.
sitting back in the days. I'm like, I thought we just had to deal with a bear. Now you're telling me I got to have a six pack and I got to run $1 million business. Like, uh, what? Right? Like we're just not equipped for it. So back to your point again, like when you think we're spread so thin and you think I just got to be stronger, it's like no, your body's literally shutting down on you as you think you just need to be stronger. You know?
Okay, we need to take a little break because, shocker, this podcast is brought to you by my flagship company, Blush, and I need to give a shout out. So, not only does Blush sponsor my lavish lifestyle, it also sponsors this podcast. Shouts. If you know me, you know that I do not play around when it comes to beauty and self care, and that's why Blush is your one stop shop for looking and feeling your best. We genuinely do it all: hair, makeup, nails, massage, tattoo, medi spa. Basically, if it makes you feel like a goddess, we probably offer it. So, whether you're looking for a fresh balayage or a relaxing massage or a little of that I woke up like this glow, we've got the experts to make it happen. Think of it as self care, but with a little extra love, sunshine, and family. And actually, with our most recent expansion, we now have a private gym, physiotherapy, chiropractic services, and a lot more to help your body. So, if you are ready to treat yourself, book an appointment at Blush Artistry because let's be honest, life's too short for bad hair and uneven eyeliner. You can find us at blush-artistry.ca or over on Instagram at blushartistrymua. Back to the episode. Do you have daily practices? I saw this on your Instagram and I loved it. So I'm actually asking a question that I already know the answer to. But for the point of the podcast, do you have any daily practices that you have infiltrated into your life that help with burnout, with help processing all of this information we're inundated with?
Well, I mean, there's a few, and I'll be honest, when it comes to daily practices, I always am really open with people and telling them that like this will shift and evolve based on where
Right.
you're at. And also, your nervous system is going to have a certain capacity. So, the daily practices I have now 3 years ago when I was still working like with my old job, I wouldn't have been able to deal with the practices I have now simply because I didn't have the capacity, right? But one specific one, I don't know if this is the one you're referring to, is your relationship with your phone. Those little boxes own us. Right?
Yeah.
Like they really they really do. Like your business is through your friends are through your kids are through there, like your just everything is through that little box. So creating a healthier relationship, like the reality is you can't get away with from it. So I'm not going to tell you just like go live off grid. That's not realistic unless that's really what you want to do. But there are little corrections you can make. So I'll go through those if you'd like,
Please.
starting with the morning. Okay. So a non negotiable for me is I do not pick up my phone half an hour. I give myself at least half an hour first thing in the morning. Okay. Now I will say I text my boyfriend first thing in the morning, right? So that's the one thing I do, but I do not check any social media. I do not check any emails. If anyone else has messages me, I don't look at them. Maybe if it was my mom, I'd probably just make sure, okay, she's still alive, like something like
Mhm.
that. But otherwise, I send him good morning so he knows I'm up. And then that goes back in the bathroom. I don't sleep with my phone in the bedroom either. And the reason I don't do that is the 5G waves that are coming through it are really damaging to us. So for that reason, don't sleep with it by my bed. But another reason I don't have it in my room is I heard this actually on a podcast from one of the lead scientists for Whoop. And for anyone who knows what Whoop is a another mechanism for you to kind of track like your body's sleep records, your HRV, which is your heart rate variability, all these things. And she was talking about this habit of keeping your phone in the bedroom. And she said, the way you have to think about it like this, or about it is like this. She's like, when you're scrolling social media in your bed at night, that's like letting 1,000 people into your bedroom unfiltered, saying
Mhm.
whatever they want to say, doing whatever they want to do. So when you're doing that right before bed and you're doing that first thing in the morning, and I as soon as I heard that, I was like, like absolutely not. Like my bedroom is my sacred space, you know what I mean? And especially coming from a life where I had such terrible sleeps and now I don't have that anymore. I was like, oh no. So
Mhm.
I sleep with my phone in another room strictly for that, so I don't have an inundated of unfiltered energy coming in. But so yeah, give myself half an hour first thing in the morning at least. And for me, what that looks like right now is I have a self conversation. Specifically, right now, I talk to like the little girl version of me. That's like something I've been working on for a while. So I have a very clear 3-year-old version of Mintu with a bowl
Oh.
cut in a pink and white summer dress that I just check in with every morning.
That's
How you
so
doing?
cute.
How you feeling? How you
Oh.
feeling? Do you need anything? And that can be 5 minutes, that can be 10 minutes. And then I go into a meditation. That's where I'm at right now. It's not always like that. Sometimes it's journaling, but regardless, it's 30 minutes to me first thing in the morning. And if you don't have 30 minutes in the morning, that's okay. I just suggest having an intentional 10 minutes in the morning or 15, whatever you have, you know.
Mhm.
But it's just about making sure that you honor that you're the most important thing first thing. Everyone else, the problems, the world, the challenge, it's all going to be there in 10 minutes, 30 minutes, an
Yep.
hour. It's not going anywhere, but it's just setting that intention. Another thing I do is I don't have notifications on my phone, except for like obviously if someone calls or a text message.
Sure.
But I know if they have my phone number, then they're a degree closer of someone I'm gonna probably answer or need to deal with. But I don't have any notifications as far as social media. Even my email, I don't have notifications. I just set aside specific times throughout the day to check my email and to respond. And I don't remember who I got that from, but the reason is like, especially if you're a business owner, like everyone's always gonna need you. And
Mhm.
if you're in doing something throughout your day where you're building something or creating something and then you have to stop that to respond, that alone wastes so much
Oh god.
energy and
Totally.
yeah, and it switches your brain, it switches your like it's like using two different machines. Like I was on
Mhm.
this one and now I got to switch to this one and now I got to get off to this one, and we think we can do it all, but again, that alone is so draining and it makes you actually way less productive and efficient. So no notifications. Again, I set aside specific blocks to respond to emails and things like that. I'm trying to think of what else was on that list. Do you remember what else I put on
No, I
there?
don't, but I'm gonna talk about the notifications for a second because people always comment to me, they're like, "Your phone's always on do not disturb." And it's like, "Yeah, do not disturb me." But I was listening actually to a Jay Shetty podcast, and he was talking about productivity and how it's tanking, right? We can't do anything without picking up our phone multiple times. And he said just a small practice that you can do is just 25 minutes, not half an hour, just 25 minutes. Put your phone on do not disturb, don't pick it up, don't have your notifications on your Mac, and do 25 minutes, and then it's like we're like a kid with candy and tea and screen time. But we've become that in our society, and we kind of need that, and that's okay. But we do need to monitor that. And another thing that I do with my team is because they can text me any time of day, I always have them start off the text message with, "Hey, I have a work question. Let me know when you're
Mm,
ready."
mm,
So then if I'm walking my dog, I'm like, I'm not going to answer. Or
mm.
if I'm sitting in front of a computer, it's like, yeah, hit me, I'm ready. And what that does is it allows a little bit more space for us to, like you said, use those different machines. And now I'm no longer getting a text message from my team member that says the laundry hamper or the laundry's on fire, you know? And because immediately it's like, "Oh my god, I'm so stressed out." But that helps with that burnout stage, and that helps with processing the stress, and I think that little teeny tiny things, not it's not gonna work for everyone, but little teeny tiny changes that we can make in our daily practices and how we receive this information is going to change lives. Mintu, you're changing lives, girlfriend. You are.
Well I appreciate it, but exactly what you said, that's what I mean about optimizing,
Yeah.
right? But it takes slowing down enough to take inventory of what's working and what's not working, and if you're in fight or flight all day long, and you're like, "I don't have time to slow down," or like, you're giving resistance to even taking this time to yourself, you're not never gonna get to the point to have a realization of something as simple as what you just said that you
Mhm.
can implement that has clearly had a really big impact on how you
Yep.
deal with these things, right?
Yep. And it's just it goes for them as well. It's not just a me thing, you know? Like my team members also have lives. They have children, they have things that they're doing too. And so it's just because I have something that I want to talk to them about doesn't mean that it's a one-way street. You know, I also think about business owners that have a commercial space. I can't even begin to emulate how many problems a commercial space brings to your life. Small things. The Spotify isn't hooking up to the speakers. The dryer's not drying. The light bulb's burnt out in the bathroom. And sometimes all of those things happen in one day. And there's certainly times as a business owner, you're going to be like, I'm done. I'm out. I can't handle anymore. But if you're processing your stress in the right way, and I love that you're saying this because I've never used those terms before, but I will now. If you're processing your stress in a very productive way, when all three of those things happen in the same day, you're able to just be like, "Oh my god, this is crazy.
Right.
What
It,
is
it
happening?"
exactly, the level of response will shift accordingly, right? And
Mhm.
not 100% of the time.
Of
We're
course.
still humans. There are going to be
Yeah,
days where we're just like, a mess. But
totally.
exactly, like one of the other things I talk about when I telling people, like, asking them questions if they're burnt out, I say, like, do your responses suit the level of the problem, or are your
Mhm,
responses typically a lot more elevated than the level of the problem, right? Like that's also a big indicator of whether you're
mhm,
disconnected within, you know?
mhm. Yeah, 2 to 10. I think that, you know, as a business owner, if I have any advice for those that have commercial spaces and having to deal with those things on a regular basis, I try to make, like, jokes about things. So, specifically the Spotify speaker thing yesterday, the gym owner was like, "Hey, the Spotify's not working." So I'm like, "Tech is here. Your tech team's here." You know, or like, "Hey, the electrician's here. How can I help? You got a breaker out?" And I think that it takes a lot to get there. You know, we've been open for 3 years. I've had this space for a really long time. 3 years ago, I would have spiraled. I would have shut down,
Mm.
you
Mhm.
know, and exposure therapy is a real thing. And
Absolutely.
you get to a point where you're like, "Oh, it actually does work out. It's
Yeah.
okay. I'm
Yeah.
okay. I'm
Yeah.
safe. The
Yeah,
speakers
well,
are working."
exactly, that's
Yeah.
just it. I always tell my clients one thing I always say, I'm like, "Did anyone die?"
Yeah.
And they're like, "No," and then that becomes a running joke, and they're like, "Guess
Yeah.
what I did this week and no one died?" I'm like,
Yeah.
"Yeah,
Yeah.
awesome!" Like, and you're right, it sounds cliche where, we're being a little tongue in cheek here, but it's true.
It
You
is.
know what I mean? But I get it you worked so hard for something and you're invested and you just wanna put out a great product, like, I get it. The Spotify not
Yeah.
connecting, yeah, that's frustrating. What kind of experience? But
Totally.
at the same time, it's like, it's Spotify,
Yeah.
like, it's yeah.
Use Apple Music.
Yeah,
Um
yeah.
The the I do you think that this is actually a question. So do you think that business owners that haven't gone through, this is totally different topic, really traumatic life situations, so like a lot of loss. So I've experienced a lot of loss in my life. So you have perspective. Do you think that that helps people process things, or do you think it hinders?
Ooh, that's a really good question. I think that if you've gone through more trauma in the past, like, because I'll be honest, I don't consider myself someone who has gone through a lot of trauma, like, knowing what
Mhm.
people have gone through, like, I haven't experienced a lot of loss, like, I lost my dad last year, but, like, outside of him, I haven't really lost anyone close to me, like, I would say I probably don't deal with it a lot. What it comes down to, and this might sound cliche, but it's the truth, it always comes down to your relationship with yourself,
Mm.
and those experiences, you could have either those could have catapulted you into having a better relationship with yourself sooner because it forced you to hit some, like, really start looking at some deep wounds sooner, or you might have kept sweeping them under the rug, and now that you're finally doing the work, there's a little bit more to uncover there. Do you know what I mean? Like, I think that really is always what it comes down to is, like, when these
Mhm.
things happen, and obviously a lot of them happen when we're kids and we don't have the tools usually to deal
Totally.
with them, of course, understandably so. But it's like those experiences, if you've taken the time to process them and allow yourself to experience the emotion and whatever you went through at that time, I think if you allowed yourself the space to do that, you would move through it faster where it wouldn't hinder you as much.
Mhm.
Where if you don't ever allow yourself to deal with those things and you just kind of shove it down, which is kind of a typical type A personality thing to do, like almost like I'm strong enough, and you just push it down, push it down, push it down. That I just think it's gonna bite you in the ass at some point, and that
Mhm.
doesn't mean you're doomed, that just means now you have to deal with it. So, I think it always comes down to that is, like, have you taken the time to really just allow yourself to experience what you needed to for the moment based on what happened to you?
Yeah, and I also think that loss, trauma, all of those things, it's all perspective, all compared to
Mhm.
what you've gone through, So, I don't know, a car accident could be extremely traumatizing, whereas someone's like, "Oh, I've been in 10." So like
Totally.
it's life experiences are very, very different. We all have our different path.
Absolutely, absolutely, and then there's different ways to process it too, like, some people are a really big fan of, like, traditional talk therapy, and
Mhm.
that can be enough to go through it. Some people don't like that because they don't wanna keep revisiting the past, and that's what a lot of talk therapists do is they keep bringing up the past, but then it feels like you're reliving the car accident, so it's like, I
Mhm.
don't wanna keep doing that either, so, different strokes for different folks, I
Yeah.
suppose, but the point is I think what those incidents bring up is that after they happen, there's often a story about ourselves because it always comes back to ourselves that
Sure.
we tell ourselves about that, even if it's something that had nothing to do with us. Maybe a grandparent passed away from cancer, but that passing away usually leads back to some kind of story in our own head about who were or how they treated us or was I there for them enough during it? And it's that story, whether you give yourself self acceptance and grace through that story, or whether you beat yourself up and shame yourself more, I think determines whether it slows you down and burns you out more coming down the road, or if it frees you and allows you to learn from it sooner.
I completely agree. And I think that the amount of tools that we have naturally as children, um, when we grow up and become big adults and we're doing everything that we're supposed to be doing, it will help us process everything better, whether it's the burnt out light bulb in the bathroom or whether it's the loss of someone close to you. I mean, there's so many things that are integrated into our lives on a daily basis. And when what it boils down to is we just need to process and we need to sit and we need to think. It would take the 30 minutes, take 10 minutes, whatever it is, but do a once over. Oh my gosh, how
Mhm.
did that make me feel? How do I want to feel today? And that's such a great question to ask yourself in the morning.
Mhm, mhm. I think with everything we've talked about so far, it just always comes back to your relationship with you. Like, you deserve the 30 minutes in the morning. You
Mhm.
deserve the 30 minutes at night. You deserve the hour on the Sunday to sit and just, how did that make me feel? Like, and honestly, even deserves a weird word. I've always been weird about deserve, but like it's just something we need to be doing more. And we don't talk about it
Mhm.
enough, you know?
Mhm. Ooh, I feel this episode has been very enlightening,
Yeah. And
hasn't it?
honestly, off the cuff of what we thought we were gonna talk about.
Totally. Are we Buddha?
Yeah. These are the best episodes anyways, when it's just
Totally.
natural, right?
Well, and it's so relatable. I completely relate to everything you're talking about. I completely relate to everything that you've gone through, and I really do think that our listeners will also think that because this is a life skill that we need to acquire in order to move forward, no matter what.
Exactly. 100% doesn't matter what you do, who you are, if you're a human being on earth, you need the skill.
Yeah, you got to process. This has been lovely. Thank you, Minh-Thu, for joining me today. Where can our listeners find us? Do you have anything going on right now? Tell the world.
Yeah, well, so I have my own podcast as well too, which is the Higher Alignment podcast. So feel free to check me out there. And then I mean my main jam is I'm in the executive coaching space. So I work with high performers and executives who are dealing with burnout and transforming that space and how they optimize their stress. And the biggest thing with that is not only just healing the burnout, it's like finding the joy in life again. Like honestly,
Mm,
and that sounds so cheesy, but it's the truth. You know what I
yeah.
mean? Like I know I had gotten to a point where I was not going through my days with joy, and in healing this process is just bringing that back into their lives. So the best ways to connect with me are on Instagram. You can find me at Minh-Thu_Lam. I think I've given you all these links. You
Yeah,
can put
it'll
them
be
in
in
the
the
show
show
notes
notes
if
as
you'd
well.
like.
Yeah.
Wonderful. So Instagram or LinkedIn, either of those places. I always have lots of free content on there that can help you with what you're going through. But also, I just love chatting with people about this and their experience and just normalizing it. Like,
Yeah.
again, like the high performer, the entrepreneur, the executive, this connotation that like they don't want to admit they're burnt out because it's the sign of weakness. Like everyone is. Like,
Yeah.
like honestly, to what degree will
Totally.
vary, but everyone is. And I just yeah, feel free to shoot me a DM. I love to talk with people about it and just hopefully be able to make your journey a little less insufferable.
Yeah, and we don't want you shaving your heads, guys. So
But
we
yeah,
just yeah,
no,
no shaved
we're a
heads.
fan of hair over here. We're a
Yeah,
fan of hair, and if you're
totally.
bald, that's okay too. So
Yeah, totally. We don't discriminate.
yeah,
Um, okay, this was lovely. Thank you so much for joining me today and sharing your energy and your wealth of knowledge. It's been a pleasure.
wonderful. Thanks so much, Heather.
All right, another episode bites the dust. If you loved this conversation as much as I did, don't forget to hit follow, leave a review, or even send it to a friend you think would enjoy it. And because I like to keep things fun, we're always running giveaways with our amazing guests. So make sure to check with the show notes, our Instagram page, get in on the details on how to get the free stuff because it's free and fun. And who doesn't like that? Another little disclaimer, while I love sharing advice and business wisdom, I am not your lawyer, I'm not your accountant, and I'm not your fairy godmother. If you do want to be best friends, though, you can hit me up. Everything on this podcast is for educational and entertainment purposes only, so no lawsuits, okay? Thank you for hanging out with me today. If you'd like to hang out more, you can find me on Instagram at I am Heather Dick and at the Expansion Code. And all of our free resources and consulting packages are on the website www.theexpansioncode.ca. I appreciate you being here more than you know. I will see you next time.